I think that Gavin is largely incompetent, and I think the mayor is largely incompetent, and probably both of them are just stone cold incompetent. What they've done is terrible.
You say what to people who insist that these independent investigations or calls for them, are you passing the blame on to other people?
How could it be when we're doing an independent investigation?
President-elect Trump has blamed you for this crisis. He called you incompetent.
And it turns out that Gavin Newsom absolutely is incompetent while giving the appearance of someone who's poised to be a president. Now, we'll get to all those details in just a minute, but it is important to understand that California Democrats are absolutely getting blasted for their inept leadership and lack of fire preparedness in the lead up to the devastating fires that have ravaged large parts of Los Angeles County, devastated areas, including the Pacific Palisades, Altadena, California, which is near Pasadena. Now, Donald Trump in particular has been going after the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who just keeps getting caught in various lies, including the one that you're about to hear.
The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir that was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to.
Why did you say all the reservoirs were full? And then when you're hit with the facts of one of the major reservoirs being completely empty, well, that's why I'm calling for investigations. And that's not a state reservoir. I'm gonna pass the buck. Please don't blame me. It's not my fault, even though I am the governor of this state. That's who Gavin Newsom is. In every single interview that he has done amid these wildfires, if you listen carefully, all he does is look for other people to blame. Oh, it's the city government. Oh, it wasn't the state government. No. You're the top dog, politically speaking, in the state of California, and he has failed the people of California, not just in regard to the current wildfires, but he has consistently failed the people of California in response to these wildfires, the aftermath of the wildfires. I mean, just take a look at what happened in Paradise, California. Okay, the so-called Camp Fire, which absolutely destroyed that community, robbed people of their homes as a result of PG&E, one of the electrical utilities here in this country, in this state. He bailed them out. I mean, this is who Gavin Newsom is, and I have a lot more to get to. But Cenk, I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to finding out what caused these fires. And it might be a couple of different reasons. We don't really know. But if it's PG&E again, then I'm going to be furious because Gavin Newsom took $10 million from them and then has not forced them to bury their wires. And their wires that are hanging above us all are kind of like a Damocles sword hanging over all of our heads in California, just so that Gavin Newsom can collect more campaign donations from PG&E. It's disgusting. I can't stand it. And then to your point, Anna, why did you say that you're ordering an investigation because the reservoir was not filled for the Pacific Palisades? But like literally 15 seconds ago, you said that all the reservoirs were filled. Both of those things can't be true at the same time. And I don't mean that as, hey, maybe you might have did a slip up on the reservoir not being full, but you just explained 15 seconds later that it was so important to you that you ordered an independent investigation, including of yourself, that it's hard for me to believe that you forgot that when he asked you the first time around.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So look, I think Karen Bass has a lot of explaining to do in LA. And I think that, yeah, and the Santa Ynez reservoir is more of a local issue than a state issue. But I think that overall, your point about Gavin deflecting, well, he's done it literally in every interview. And in this case, I want you guys to understand the trick that he's doing, because he's doing one of these investigations is a great way to punt.
Yes.
And avoid responsibility when everyone is paying attention. When that report comes out, even if it's a scathing report, it'll come out 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 3 months, however long it takes. And by that point, people will have moved on to some degree, right? And Gavin gets to pick the people doing the independent investigation. And then, even if it comes out against him, by that point, the energy is dissipated. And he knows that. But Anna, I gotta say one thing. Look, Democrats usually, unfortunately, over the last, I don't know, couple of decades, I guess at least post Obama, right? Have had two problems. One is they don't deliver on policy, and two is just terrible on messaging and politics and strategy. At least Gavin Newsom is slick enough that he knows how to deflect. So he does it really professionally. If you're not paying attention and you just saw that on MSNBC, I think that a lot of those Democratic voters are going to think, oh, Gavin's on top of this, man. He's nailing this. And I know that that's what drives you even more crazy, okay? But he's at least adept at pretending he's doing something while doing nothing.
We don't need an investigation. We don't need an investigation because we know exactly what happened with that empty reservoir. And the reason why that reservoir was empty is because of the fact that it needed repairs to a floating cover so debris doesn't get into the water. And it's been empty for nearly a year. Why has it been empty for a year? Well, because constructing anything, building anything in this state, thanks to the environmental activists, or I should say, thanks to the individuals in this state who use environmentalism as this shield in order to pass regulations to make it incredibly difficult to build anything, including housing, right? They've succeeded at that. So to build anything, whether it's a reservoir, whether it's a repair to a reservoir, whether it's building a house, whether it's building anything, becomes incredibly expensive, becomes incredibly difficult to do, takes years on end. The last reservoir that was built in the state of California was built in the year, it was completed in the year 2000. Groundbreaking on that reservoir began in 1995. Explain to me how the fifth largest economy globally, the state of California, has that much difficulty building a reservoir. 5 years? Last one again was finished, completed in the year 2000. In 2014, voters in California overwhelmingly supported a ballot measure to support building more reservoirs in the state in order to bulk up our water infrastructure because we live in a drought-prone state. That passed in 2014. Funding was attached to it. You want to know how many reservoirs have been built since 2014? Zero. This state is an utter joke because of the people who are governing it. Gavin Newsom right now is at the top of that list. Let's get back to the Santa Ynez Reservoir. So officials said that the Santa Ynez Reservoir had been closed since about February of last year, 2024, okay? For repairs to its cover, leaving a 117 million gallon water storage complex empty in the heart of the Pacific Palisades for nearly a year. Unacceptable. So why hasn't it been repaired? Like, what's going on? Well, the city began emptying the reservoir in February of last year due to this tear in the floating cover. They were worried about debris getting into the water. Totally understand that. The repair would have taken a week, but it didn't take a week. It never got done because repairing anything in this damn state is impossible. Okay, so then we hear about the upcoming winds. Look, we were not surprised by this. I want people to not make the mistake of drinking the Democratic Party's Kool-Aid on this, because we were getting reports about the intense Santa Ana winds and the upcoming fire weather almost a week in advance. I knew about the fire winds and all of that the Friday before the fire started on Tuesday. Now I bring that up because there was nothing wrong with the actual structure of that Santa Ynez reservoir. It was just the floating cover that had issues. So if I were the mayor of Los Angeles, knowing that these winds are coming, knowing that those winds could create a terrible, hazardous wildfire situation, I would hurry up and fill that reservoir, not really concerned about the debris getting into that reservoir because we might need that reservoir specifically to fight fires. She didn't do that though, did she, Cenk? She knew about the winds. She knew they were coming. And what did she do? She went on a taxpayer-funded trip. Us Angelinos paid for her to travel abroad to Ghana, okay? For what? For something important that's going to benefit the people of Los Angeles? No, to watch their incoming president get inaugurated.
Yeah.
You are the mayor of a major city. You're not a diplomat. You're not an ambassador. What the F are you doing in Ghana?
Yeah.
Why were you not here preparing for a potential disastrous wildfire? The fact that she went to Ghana, Cenk, isn't just about the waste in taxpayer money. It isn't just about her absence. It's about the fact that it shows that she underestimated what was about to come. She didn't have the foresight because she doesn't care. That's the issue here.
So guys, we're gonna give you a lot more details about how unprepared they were in a sec. And so all I want us to do in prefacing that, and I'm not as animated as Anna is about the Ghana trip. And so-
Why are we paying for that?
No, I get it. But politicians do it all the time. Republican and Democratic mayors do it. They go abroad on taxpayer-funded trips. And obviously she didn't know that a giant fire was going to start, although it is fire season. But the major thing I want you guys to keep your eye on is, as now and this is the part that's beginning to enrage me a little bit, as I see a lot of people on our side defending Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom just because they're Democrats or they're on the left, or because Donald Trump told a wild lie about the fires, or because Karen Bass is a black woman. Now that's a new theory that she wouldn't have been criticized otherwise. This is the largest fire in LA history. Trust me, she could have been Martian. She'd be criticized. And so the number one thing I want you to keep an eye out for is I think their pathetic excuse for, no one could have seen this coming. I mean, it's just wind, that's all. I mean, are you kidding me? There's wildfires in LA all the time. And you know generally what season they're gonna come in. You know they're going to be devastating. You know that your own donors are causing it half the time. So you couldn't know it any better. You've been in trouble for it before. And you come into LA or California and you don't prepare adequately for this. And then afterwards you're deer in the headlights and you're like, you don't know how to answer any questions and you don't show any leadership. No, guys, don't make excuses for people on our side, because those homes burned down. I know families that were affected, my family's affected, and do not make the mistake of thinking because Republicans did X or Y that we should let people on our own side slide, because them sliding year after year, decade after decade in blue states and blue cities is what has caused their complete arrogance. And the reason Karen Bass didn't answer that question by Sky News reporter is because she thought, I don't have to answer questions of anyone. I'm a Democratic leader in California. I'm above the law.
It's even worse. Criticism. It's even worse. They're not used to tough questions. They're not used to tough questions. The corporate media absolutely does PR and provides cover for the Democratic Party, whether it's on a local level or a federal level. So when she was hit with a simple question, do you regret going to Ghana, knowing that these winds were coming? Do you regret cutting the fire budget? She was stunned. She didn't know how to respond, which is why she remained silent. It is pathetic to say the least. Real quick though, there was a lot of talk about how, well, the fire, there wasn't enough water pressure in the hydrants in the Pacific Palisades in order to fight the fires effectively. And so it wasn't really about a shortage of water. It was really about the lack of water pressure. Okay, that is a lie, or it's true in a way, but it's shielding the fact, hiding the fact that the way that the water infrastructure works, the way the water pressure works is wholly dependent on the volume of water in the reservoirs. So when you have an empty reservoir in the main area where the fire is happening, well, you're gonna have issues with the water pressure because again, the water pressure is dependent on the volume of water in the reservoirs. In fact, the Los Angeles Times, in writing about the Santa Ynez Reservoir being empty, spoke to various people. Had the reservoir been operable, water pressure in the Palisades would have lasted longer on Tuesday night, said former DWP General Manager Martin Adams, an expert on the city's water system. A DWP official acknowledged that the reservoir's absence likely contributed to some diminished pressure and dry hydrants in upper regions of the Palisades. However, a spokesperson for the utility said in a statement that DWP was still evaluating the effect of the reservoir being placed offline. That reservoir carried 117 million gallons of water. Okay, I get it. The DWP wants to skirt responsibility too. there is no reason why in the lead up to this fire, after all the warnings we got about the upcoming weather, that reservoir should have been emptied. It should have been full, just in preparation, just in case a wildfire broke out. What's also concerning is that even though the reservoir has been empty since at least February for repairs, again, there was absolutely no construction on that site, no indication that the repairs were anywhere near to being done or even any indication that they had even started. Newsom told Californians that he had signed an executive order to overhaul the state's approach to land management by significantly increasing prevention efforts. And it turns out through a 2021 investigation by Cap Radio and NPR, by the way, they found Newsom's kind of lying about this. So let me give you the details on that as well. So when it comes to fire prevention or mitigation, one of the most important things you can do is land management, meaning you clear dry brush. Okay, you manage the forests. I get that Donald Trump sounds moronic when he talks about raking the leaves in the forests. But what he was trying to get at is actually something really important. Okay, we do need to do land management. We need to do prescribed burns. We need to, deal with dead vegetation, dry brush, you get the point. Even Gavin Newsom acknowledged that that was something that needed to be done. But a 2021 investigation by Cap Radio followed up on what Newsom was really up to. The investigation found Newsom overstated by an astounding 690% the number of acres treated with fuel breaks and prescribed burns in the very forestry projects he said needed to be prioritized to protect the state's most vulnerable communities. Newsom had claimed that 35 priority projects carried out as a result of his executive order resulted in fire prevention work on 90,000 acres. Wow, really impressive. Except when you dig in, the state's own data show the actual number is 11,399. And look, to be fair, at first, when Gavin Newsom took office, there was an increase in in fire prevention activity. But when people stop paying attention, Gavin Newsom does one thing and he does it really well. He stops doing what he promised. Okay, so Cal Fire's fuel reduction output dropped by half in 2020 to levels below Jerry Brown's final year in office. At the same time, Newsom slashed roughly $150 million from Cal Fire's wildfire prevention budget. Now, look, to be absolutely fair, under Newsom, there was an increase in land management, but you still can't forget the fact that he says one thing, and when you look at the numbers, it's actually a lot less than what he has claimed. Okay, so in this case, you're talking about treating 90,000 acres of land, clearing dry brush, dealing with dead vegetation. Turns out it wasn't 90,000 acres of land; it was a little over 11,000. These are the things that need to be done. Democrats accept that climate change is real. I accept that climate change is real, okay? But to use climate change as an excuse to do nothing or to do little, and then when disaster strikes, you just say, oh, it was climate change and it's the Republicans' fault. I'm not buying that. Obviously, there needed to be mitigation efforts in place, and those mitigation efforts were not in place. They just weren't.
Yeah. So, Anna, I think the climate change excuse makes it worse, because I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm saying. I think I 100% believe that climate change is leading to more severe storms all across the country, and I think that might be a factor here. But wouldn't that make you want to get more prepared, not less prepared? Especially if you believe in climate change as we do, and you're a Democratic governor or you're a Democratic mayor, and you've been warning about climate change this whole time. Wouldn't you want to hurry up and fill up reservoirs, do more of the controlled burns that you need to do all the things that you're saying that you're doing while you're not actually doing them, right? And so look, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So the problem in some of these deeply blue states, and by the way, definitely true in deep red states as well, is that mainstream media does no accountability, zero, for anyone in power. So when, and that's why Alabama and Mississippi, by the way, is rank at the bottom for so many different categories, because the mainstream media in those areas kiss up to Republicans. And they're like, what a wonderful job by the governor and the mayor again, as they're 49th and 50th, right? And in California, oh my God, the mainstream media loves Democratic politicians because they're in power. So they never have any accountability. So that's why Gavin can lie about, and be off by 690%, can say that every reservoir is filled and 15 seconds later say, oh yeah, the main one wasn't filled, because he never gets called out on it. And so that allows for them to keep coasting and not actually delivering for their voters, which then blows up like this, where people get enraged. By the way, if you don't know, Karen Bass is a goner. She's gone. There's no chance of reelection. And if you're listening to shows that are lying to you and pretending that the people of LA are okay and that they're still backing Karen Bass because of unity and because Trump lied about something, you're totally wrong. Everyone in LA hates Karen Bass now. And so finally, though, in terms of, could you see it coming? To me, that's the most important part, right? One of our viewers did a super chat here that I think is so good. T'Challa's son wrote in, State Farm definitely knew the fires were coming.
Yep.
Okay, and I need to explain that to you if you don't know what they're referring to. There's someone at TYT that this happened to. Their fire insurance was going to be canceled in February of this year, so next month. And he knew that before the fires because of a conversation he had with them. Why? Because these insurance companies are like, LA's becoming uninsurable because there's so many wildfires. I don't know if they're taking into account that our leaders are doing almost nothing to prevent them. In fact, sometimes they're doing things to add on to the great risk. But either way, it's not like, oh, nobody could have seen it coming. When there was profit on the line, all the insurance companies saw it super clearly. So when Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass or any Democrat lies to you and says, oh, no one could have seen it coming, ask them about State Farm, okay? Because that shows you everyone saw it coming. So they're totally and utterly lying when they make excuses for their lack of preparation.
Look, the other thing I'm gonna bring up, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but it's just the truth. It is the truth, and I am just desperate for something to be done about it. I had to evacuate. So I evacuate to where you think it's gonna be safe, in the middle of the San Fernando Valley, where I grew up, Reseda, California. Okay. But then there was an encampment fire, a giant encampment fire that threatened the neighborhood I was staying in. There are encampment fires daily, dozens of them daily. Add that to high winds, add that to dry conditions. And I mean, you're just creating the worst possible situation. People are terrified. No one is safe in California or Los Angeles when it comes to this issue. So when it comes to fire prevention, dealing with these encampments appropriately is also part of the equation, but people are afraid to even talk about that. I mean, Cenk, am I wrong for bringing this up? The wildlife preserve near me, or reserve, I should say, near me, has been lit on fire dozens of times over the last year alone.
Yeah. So no, that's just, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. So look, guys, the PG&E has been the cause of most of the most amount of fires that we have tracked. Okay, that doesn't mean they're the only source of fires. And unfortunately do homeless folks who are almost always the fire started by someone who's hooked on drugs. They're starting it for the drugs because you cook some of the drugs. Has that been a major source of fire here in LA over the last half a decade to a decade? Absolutely. Anyone who says that that's not true is just literally indisputably lying to you. And I guess the reason they would lie to you is, oh, we want to protect our unhoused neighbors, so let's cover up the fact that they're starting fires to get high. So, but remember, not all homeless people are the same. That's the minority of homeless people. We're not trying to be, say anything disparaging about homeless people. We're just telling you a reality, and you covering it up doesn't help at all. And it's to do something about those fires is not to say that you should hate homeless people or that you should take it out on all homeless people. But if you say, because we're worried that someone else might criticize homeless people, we're gonna bury an incredibly important fact about safety that affects everyone, including the homeless, by the way, because the fire first spreads into homeless areas, right, and endangers them as well. That's just absurd, and I'm not gonna participate in absurd Democratic ass covering, okay? So when someone starts a fire in LA, I don't give a goddamn what their conditions are or why they did it. And don't tell me, oh, well, it's okay because they were super high on drugs and they needed a fire to start their new batch of drugs. No, there should be severe penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it in the middle of a place that is known for gigantic wildfires, and you want me to have sympathy for you? No, that's you saying, I don't care about anybody else's life here, including, by the way, my homeless neighbors. I'm gonna endanger all of their lives. I'm gonna endanger everyone's life because I wanna get high again. No, there should be severe consequences.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.